Hi, everybody. Today is Saturday, March 4th, 2023. My name is Michael Zornick, and today I'm going to give you a bit of a tour of a pull request I made for my own personal side project where I upgraded my application to Phoenix 1.7.1, actually, and just kind of walk you through how I did that and some of the observations I had that you might want to know for your own updates. So this is my project board, and this was the ticket, and I had two PRs. I had to close the one because I had a wrong branch name, but so this is the PR. You'll see it's quite big, 929 files. Most of those are small little icon files being added, so this does touch a lot of files, but that's a little that's a little bit larger than it really impacts. So the basic way I approach this update, and I would recommend similarly, is read the overall changes for Phoenix 1.7. So within the documents, you'll see a guide for changelog 1.7, and this will kind of go over the new features of 1.7 and everything that's changed. It's not too in depth, but it does give you an idea of like some of the big things, and like verified routes, the removal of views as the default system to like render templates, and a couple other things like that. The other thing you want to check out is the upgrade instructions from Christmas Cord. Those are actually linked at the top of this changelog, so it says see the upgrade guide, and that'll link to a GIST, which talks about updating from Phoenix 1.6 to 1.7. And this, read through this, and also read through the comments, because there's a couple good notes in the comments about things that is missed in like the main body, or other little things that you might want to do. So forth. Next thing you want to check out is there is a tool called Phoenix Diff, which can compare the previous version to the newest. So you can basically go to this website and you can pick your source, like where you're starting from, and then like what the target you're looking for, and then look at a visual diff of what it is. So like Phoenix is obviously uses a project generator, and that changes substantially between major versions. So comparing the generator from the old version to the new version, like you'll get a sense of like what's changed. And a lot of like the little work that I've done has been to kind of like look at my current project, look at the new generator output, and then do my best to make my project emulate the generator as much as possible, so that it just feels kind of like natural to anybody who kind of like would to peek in. And so with that, I also recommend that you of course install the new project generator and make sure you have the latest, so like 1.7.1. When I first started working on this, I actually still had 1.7.0, and there are notable changes, particularly with the hero icons from 7.0 to 7.1. And so you'll definitely want the latest version. And so like what I'll do is I will use the new project generator, and on like my desktop I will generate a new project with the same name of the target project that I'm like trying to update, because you will run into cases where there are just some straight up files that you can just like copy outright from the newly generated project to your source project that you're trying to update. So using the same name will make sure like all the module names kind of like line up appropriately. And that's basically what I did. I took a couple other notes, and there's a couple other inline notes within the diff file, which we'll run through really quickly. But if I were doing this on a larger project, so Franklin itself is kind of small. It's not a particularly big project, and so I attempted to do all the things, which basically means not only did I upgrade to Phoenix 1.7.1, but I also implemented verified routes. I removed the views, and I did a couple other little things. Whereas, like, if I was on a bigger project, I'd probably do those verified route things as like separate work. So, like, get your stuff up to 1.7, merge it into your main branch, and then later on come back and do those other things. And then if you do want to like keep your update to 1.7 but keep your stuff backwards compatible. So like the current generator will not include views, and so like if you still have a lot of view stuff, you can add Phoenix View as a dependency, and that'll help you maintain like backwards compatibility with like a lot of your older stuff while you like work to like update it to like the newer style, in the future. And so yeah, as I said, a lot of my little stuff was just updating my project to match the generator. I did bring in some stuff like the new core components and the hero icons, which I'm not using yet, but like it's good to have them in the project as a point of reference. I think there was one core component that had a name collision for me, which was like button. And so I renamed the core component button to like phx_button, just so I could avoid that collision. But other than that, everything, kind of worked. I'll run through some of the files. There's a lot of files, and there's not a lot of like super interesting stuff. Of course, the removal of a lot of the CSS, because the new GitHub does not like the. So this is the beta version of the new GitHub file browser, and it's a little quirky. But so this removes a lot of the CSS because that has been kind of moved within the components. This JavaScript stuff is mostly just like formatting. It also does introduce a newer version of Topbar, and because Topbar is copied in as like a full vendored like copied file, you'll want to make sure to like update that. And with this new default, basically they're passing in a value of 300 into show. And my understanding is the way that works is like that is like the delay before you'll see that like top, loading bar on a live view. If it's under 300 milliseconds, then my understanding is the top bar just does not show up. It just kind of happens, which is it's nice, but it's definitely a little visually jarring because you're kind of used to seeing the blue loading bar for everything. So yeah, a lot of stuff with top bar changes. Lots of configuration changes to get rid of the view stuff. So views are gone. Now they're just using some like controllers and template rendering through that, which honestly I'm not 100% familiar with. I mean, I got it working, but I'm not 100% sure of all of the little intricacies there. They changed the way the Swoosh client is configured, so you'll see some changes there. The other kind of big thing that's important to observe with Swoosh is that the default generator now uses Finch, which we can actually just jump right to the mix. I'm going to hide all the icon files because we're not going to look at those. But like inside of my mix.exs file, you'll see I added the Finch dependency, and they're using that as the default networking layer for Swoosh. And so some of the configuration files changed to be more explicit about that use case. So if you want to match the generator, then you'll also want to pull in Finch as well. And what else with the configurations? I think that's about it. Yeah, they moved some SSL stuff from prod to runtime, which kind of makes sense. Testing, they changed this warn to warning. I believe this is something to do with the updates they've done to kind of like have better synergy with the Erlang logger. I don't really know too much about that outside the headline, but they changed the ordering of some of the children processes. So they used to start the repo and then telemetry. Now they launched telemetry before the repo, which actually is a good move because if you want to capture telemetry on the repo, you'll want to make sure it is first in that list. And then again, if you're going to use Finch, you have to add Finch to the supervision tree there. Other things, so Franklin Web gets a lot of changes because of the removal of views and the introduction of the verified routes, and so they changed the way helpers work. And so instead of view helpers, they're now called HTML helpers. And then you'll see all the HTML helpers, and then at the end of it, you'll see they unquote the verified routes, which verified routes gets pulled in through a combination of the endpoint, the router, and your static paths to get all those working. And that's pretty cool. I mean, verified routes in my upgrade process did catch a couple of routes that I wrote that were not legit, that had typos in them. So that was kind of cool to see. With the removal of views, you may run into this issue where you were relying on a common function called like error tag to be available in your templates, and that's not there anymore. So for me, for the immediate time, I kind of put that here in the helpers list, and so this will just get added to everything. It's a bit overkill. There's probably a better way to do that, but it kind of works for now. And then the other one that kind of goes with that is the translate errors. Historically, that lives in a you'll see it here in some component, but on most projects it actually lives within a view file, and so that's been moved to the core component. So for me, the way I've handled this is just anytime I need to call a translate error, I just call directly into the core component module instead of having it in a view, because views don't exist anymore. All the core components, I'm not even going to load these, but these are all, I'll load them. These are all the default components that you'll get that'll assist in the generators in the basic template, and they're a good starting point for an application. I haven't really looked into them too much. So there's configs, components. There's a layouts file, and this gets into like how templates work now that views are gone. And this is where my ignorance starts to show, because like there's a layouts file, and then it's basically layouts have moved like from a top level folder in the web subfolder to like inside the components, and so we don't think of like the page layout as this like other concept. It's now just a component. It is just the top level component that gets called. So there's a layouts file and then all of your layouts themselves. And so for me, I have app, live admin, and then root. Those all just moved in with a couple of little changes. Admin or app. What was it? So app got added here. And those were just removed. And then a couple little things here, like the CRF token value function name was changed. The way static routes work changes, so that kind of impacted how style sheets and the JavaScript file are brought in. Different error files. The page controller, I did bring in the default page controller with its default home template, mostly for reference. I'm not actually using it, but figured I'd bring it in. And that's right there. The endpoint, one of the things I observed in the generator was this introduction of a same site colon. I looked it up, and it's basically related to some security practices regarding like same site and strict for session cookies. It seems kind of small, but like if you're trying to match the generator, then that is like an addition that you want to make. What else? This was just deleted because that was just old. I had a lot of stuff with regard to some like forms that I was doing, like labels and text inputs, and because those functions are not injected into the view and it made available to the templates anymore, for the time being, I've just hard-coded the full module name and started calling them through that. Eventually, this will be refactored into proper components, but for now, that like made it work. For the links, because there's no more link function, I did go through the process of updating that to the component. With the verified route. Most of this worked pretty well. The only issue I ran into specifically was I had some links that we're passing in class names, and this new link component does not allow you to pass in class additions. I can fix that. I mean, this link is just part of the core components, so you can definitely update it however you want. So I'll probably update that later too, or just figure out a better way to do my styling. But I did have some link functions that were accepting class elements that could not be carried over to link directly. And so I made a ticket to come back and look at those later. More verified route stuff, this time when I just wanted to generate the path. So you can do this with like URL or path. When it's path, it's a 3 arity function, and you have to pass it in either your connection, a socket, or an endpoint, then the router, and then the verified route, and then it'll use those parts to kind of figure out what if the verified route is verified. All this other stuff is pretty insignificant. There was an update to the telemetry file, so I would suggest making sure that you have an updated version. These just add different points of telemetry for Phoenix, which is always helpful. Then we've got our mix file, updated all the dependencies as much as I can, manually updating the actual reference numbers in the mix file. You don't really have to do that if you're doing the lock file for like little bug fix numbers, but I like doing it to be more explicit. And then you got all the hero files, which I'm not going to talk about. And then you got a couple little test file changes. These are mostly going to be just path updates. Those are just deletions outright. And then inside the connection case, had to add verified routes. But yeah, so that is the summary, I guess, of the update. And these are my notes. And yeah. Oh, and I'll mention when I added Finch, I had this issue with the dependency collision with CA Store. It complained because the version numbers didn't match right. So the way I solved this was I unlocked CA Store, and then I added Finch, and then I ran dependency get, which updated the lock file. That resolved it. So you may run into something similar because CA Store is referenced by different parts of other dependencies, and there's some version specific things they're looking for there. But yeah. Other than that, so this took me, I don't know, probably took me close to about 4 hours to kind of work through. Not a lot, but not a little either. And again, this is a really small project. So if you had a bigger project, that's why I would recommend doing the verified route stuff as like a separate piece of work. Just to make your life a little easier. But all the updates took, all my checks work, the builds without warning, all the tests pass, formatting, Credo, unused dependency check, linting, dialyzer. They're all good. And I'm going to squash a merger right here on camera. So there we go. Phoenix 1.7.1. I want to thank the Phoenix team for all their hard work on this. There's a lot of stuff under the hood. And yeah, I appreciate it and looking forward to getting some more experience, particularly with the component stuff. But yeah, I don't know. That's it for today. If you have any questions about Phoenix updates that you think I might know, happy to hear those questions. Other than that, I want to thank you for your interest and for watching. Good luck with your own updates, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.